Sometimes it's astounding how bad we humans are at predicting the future, even experts. Thomas Edison either invented or greatly contributed to the invention of the incandescent light bulb, the phonograph, the alkaline storage battery, and the motion picture camera. He held over 1,000 patents. And yet, in a 1911 interview, Edison believed the future would be 100% steel. Quote, "The baby of the 21st century will be rocked in a steel cradle. His father will sit in a steel chair at a steel dining room table, and his mother's boudoir will be sumptuously equipped with steel furnishings." End quote. In 1876, William Orton, president of Western Union, wrote this about telephones. Quote, "The idea is idiotic on the face of it. Furthermore, why would any person want to use this ungainly and impractical device when he can send a messenger to the telegraph office?" End quote. And when it came to television, there was no shortage of predictions. From the Sun-Times in 1945, quote, "4 hours in the evening or even one show each night is too much. Tests show that people will not watch movies at home nearly as often or as long as they'll listen to the radio." End quote. And from Daryl F. Zanuck, studio chief of 20th Century Fox in 1946, quote, "People will soon get tired of staring at a plywood box every night." End quote. And of course, when it came to television and baseball, there was more of the same. In 1939, a journalist at the Sporting News said about television and baseball, quote, "The time may be rather distant when the fan can sit at his home and not only hear an account of the games, but witness the players in action as well." End quote. The thing about forecasters, even today, is that they're never held to task. They make 100 predictions, and if one comes true, they're geniuses. But people ignore the other 99%. This journalist in 1939 for the Sporting News was dead wrong. That same year, 1939, saw the first televised baseball game. It was a college game at Columbia University's Baker Field. Now, in the journalist's defense, this first televised game was, in most ways, a disaster. Tonight, we rewind to the day when the future arrived, looking nothing like our present. From historic milestones
That's it! Holy cow! A strikeout gets his 300th career win, and I tell you, this is...
to euphoric moments shared by millions,
In a year that has been so improbable, the impossible has happened.
to the simple banter that brought us together,
But yeah, it's foul. Malachi with the call. I love that name.
It's a good name.
When you and I have a child together, we should name him Malachi.
Welcome to the Midnight Library of Baseball, Season 4, the broadcast that raised us, from radio to television and beyond. I'm Ben Orlando. The very first televised baseball game was a college game at Columbia University, and the people involved did not know what they were doing. According to one account of the game, quote, "The ball was so small that it was impossible to see it on the tiny television screens of the day. Too often when the speck-like ball was struck, it never was found, since the camera could not include both the pitcher's box and home plate. It was focused on the mound for the windup and quickly followed the ball to the batter and catcher. Players looked like little white flies." End quote. And from the magazine Variety, quote, "If not for the commentators, the production would have resembled a 42nd Street police circus. End quote. Bill Stern, on the mic, had no idea what the camera was showing at any moment, so there was no coordination. Stern said after the game, quote, "We learned a complete lesson about how not to televise a sporting event." End quote. One of the problems, of course, was the technology, but another problem had to do with the game itself, a problem no other sport faced. According to Walker and Bellamy Jr., quote, "Baseball's dimensions makes it a hard sport to watch, maybe the only sport where you can't follow all the action on one screen." End quote. This is absolutely true, and something I never really thought about. By the time I started watching baseball in the 1980s, they'd figured it out. But in the beginning, it was impossible for television to cover the game. Think about it. In football, in soccer, in basketball, in tennis, in hockey, the action is in one place with the ball or puck. You have one camera following the object, and you're good. In golf, you have ambiguous dimensions and multiple players in different areas, but it's slow. And really, these players are not connected to the other players. Baseball is different. You have a very oddly shaped playing field with all kinds of corners and crevices. You have the guy at the plate hitting a deep drive to right field, and now you follow the ball, but you lose the base runner. And what if there are runners already on base, and you're following the pitcher and the catcher and the batter? A New York Times journalist named Orrin Dunlap made a number of suggestions on how to improve the coverage, from using more cameras to blending the cameras and placing them in key positions. But even with these improvements, Dunlap saw the experience for the home viewer as very restricted. From Dunlap, quote, "The imprisoned baseball fan becomes restless. His eyes tire. He knows he's missing so much. His eyes cannot wander off to look at the landscape, the nearby trees or skyline." End quote. It's interesting, right? And this may have been true for fans whose first experiences were at the ballpark and then on television. For me, I never felt that imprisoned feeling. In fact, when I started going to baseball games, I felt like I was getting shortchanged because I expected a replay after every big play. And of course, that didn't happen at the ballpark. But in the 1940s, people at the time had only experienced baseball visually or through radio. So this device with grainy black and white images, players out of focus, and balls impossible to see was a joke. Many people thought, if this is what television is, you can keep it. So people who had the early games on television were 100% going back to radio, where they could imagine the game in color, in perfect clarity. But outside of the quality, you had this other problem with the camera, which wasn't a problem for other sports. According to Eldon Ham in his book, Broadcasting Baseball, quote, "Television did not drive baseball away so much as it made other sports more popular, thanks to their easy dimensions." End quote. If you could actually see what was going on, television was definitely something to capture your attention. And now, as Ham explained, you could spend your time listening to a ball game on the radio, or you could turn on the television and watch a boxing match, or watch a football game or basketball game, wrestling, horse racing. All of these options where you could use your ears and your eyes, and you could actually see what was going on. So right from the start, there was pushback on television regarding the quality of the experience. But on the other end of the spectrum, there was also pushback that the experience would be too good. In 1939, a college coach told journalist Bill Stern that he feared television would become too good at broadcasting the game, and no fans would show up to the field anymore. Basically, here we go again, because the sentiment of this coach was exactly how baseball owners felt. Again, here's baseball historian and economist Mike Halpert.
When television came along, Major League Baseball completely forgot what radio did for baseball, and they went back to exactly the same arguments. Oh no, we can't televise our games or nobody will come. And it's like, are you serious? Some of the people are still in the game who, objected to radio, realized how profitable it was, not only because I could sell the game on radio, but because I'm being paid to advertise. This is the best way, right? And yet, when television came along, the exact same arguments and the exact same things happened.
By the 1940s, owners were reaping the benefits of radio, the benefits of advertising on radio during baseball games. According to Donna Halper in her article, Live from Yankee Stadium, A Brief History of the Yankees on Radio, in 1939, the Yankees sold radio rights for $100,000. That's more than $2.3 million today. And considering radio also brought in more fans, it was a win-win. And yet, when it came to television, owners went through the same fear spiral. Fans aren't going to come to the games. They'll watch on the TV instead. We're going to lose money. We can't allow this. So again, they resist it. And maybe surprisingly, TV networks also resist it. Because another feature that set baseball apart from other sports, which could be seen as an asset or liability, was that there was no time limit. Football games, basketball games could be expected to end at certain times because the clock was always winding down. But baseball had no clock. You could make a good guess based on averages, but you could never tell if a game was going to have a fifth inning explosion of 10 runs that lasted 20 minutes. So, how do you plan programming for an event that has no clear end time? Still, in just 2 years, by 1941, television was showing an average of one ball game per week. But this wasn't the television we know today. There were no visible commercials, not until July 1st, 1941, when the very first program of commercial television was a baseball game at Ebbets Field between the Phillies and Dodgers. But guess what else happened in 1941?
The Japanese have attacked Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, by air, President Roosevelt has just announced. The attack also was made on all naval and military activities on the principal island of Oahu.
Because of the U.S. entering World War II in 1941, the marriage of baseball and television was put on hold. It wasn't until the end of the European theater in 1945 when Major League players left the Army and baseball went back to normal. Still, the technology was struggling. Broadcasts were now using 2 cameras, which was still not enough to cover the entire field. And often one camera broke down, leading again to just one camera covering everything. Even as more teams were airing their games on television, television sets were rare in America. By 1949, only 2.3% of households owned a television. It cost $300 for a typical set, which is equivalent to $4,000 today. Now, compare the prevalence of TVs to radio. By 1950, more than 90% of households owned a radio. But even so, by 1948, all but one major league team were airing games on television. And according to Walker and Bellamy, in their book Centerfield Shot, by 1948, baseball games were often the most popular programming on television. Fans also preferred night games because they could pick up the ball and players more easily at night. I find this really interesting because baseball resisted night games for so long. But it's really due to night games that televised ball games started to take off because people could understand the appeal when they could really follow what was going on. And it wasn't long before some of the greatest moments in baseball history were captured on television. And one of the biggest single baseball moments ever happened in 1951 during the first ever nationally televised game between the New York Giants and Brooklyn Dodgers. Thank you, everyone, for supporting the show, for donating, for writing reviews and posting ratings on iTunes and other podcast platforms. And for anyone who's just found Midnight Library of Baseball and you enjoy it, you can support the show in these ways and also become a Patreon member, where there are lots of bonus episodes and interviews to hear. Okay, back to the show. This moment was ranked by the Sporting News in 1999 as the greatest baseball moment. And a sports journalist, Mike Lupica, said, quote, "Sometimes you do not need 60 or 61 home runs. Sometimes you just need one. And your life is never the same after that. Not for a single day." End quote. The man's life who would never be the same was, of course, Bobby Thompson, with his shot heard round the world. And one of the reasons for why Thompson's home run was so special has to do with the game of baseball and how it's different from other sports. With football, you have a lot of action, but it's a lot of quick hit adrenaline, and then it ebbs, and then it spikes, and then it ebbs. With baseball, for all of its slow, ordinary moments, there is the potential for great, drawn-out tension. Think of a string being pulled to its breaking point. In football, you pull it hard, it breaks. You pull it hard, it snaps. But often in baseball, you slowly, gently pull, and the string starts to strain and fray, and you're watching that string, waiting to see if and when it breaks. And then, when it does, it's an explosion of emotion. Adrenaline unlike anything one can experience in other sports. And for this moment in 1951, you had one of the oldest, most heated rivalries in baseball, in sports, between the Dodgers and Giants. And to add to this tension, the two teams tied at the end of the season, leading to a 3-game playoff for the pennant. And to add more to the tension, after 2 games of the playoff, they were tied, leading to Game 3 and the bottom of the 9th, with the Giants up to bat, down 4-2. They had 2 runners on base, 1 out, and Bobby Thompson walks up to the plate. From Thompson, quote, "The next thing I remember was Leo DeRocher coming down from the third base coach's box and putting his arm around my shoulder and saying, 'Bobby, if you ever hit one now.'" End quote. Thompson was facing pitcher Ralph Branca, whose life would also never be the same after this moment. You can still find video coverage of the moment online, with Russ Hodges' radio call dubbed over the video.
Branca throws. There's a walk back. It's going to be, I believe. The Giants won the pennant. 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 Bobby Thompson hits into the very back of the left field stand. The Giants won the pennant, and they're going crazy. They're going crazy.
Now, there is video footage, but this is not the television footage. In order to record television coverage in the 1940s and 50s, they used something called a kinescope, which is basically pointing a video camera at the television and recording, which does not result in a great product. You can go online and check out the first televised ball game recorded this way, which is Game 3 of the 1952 World Series. The reception is terrible, but for people watching the live television feed at the time, it would have been much better. But anyway, you can go to YouTube and you can watch the video coverage of this game through the motion picture cameras. And just imagine that it would have been a little grainier, a little blurrier as people watched it on TV. But you still would have seen what was happening. You would have seen the ball fly off Thompson's bat and out of the stadium. But most importantly, you would have seen the celebration, the euphoria, the pure, childlike joy as players and managers and coaches were jumping up and down, jumping on each other's backs, jumping wildly, as if they didn't know what to do with all the energy bursting out of their bodies. I've shared several criticisms of television compared to radio, the idea that television leaves less room for imagination. And there's truth to that. Radio can heighten emotion by allowing listeners to fill in the gaps. Show, don't tell is what we often say in writing workshops. And radio broadcasters do show through vivid description that lets listeners construct emotion for themselves. If Red Barber describes Joe DiMaggio slamming his bat to the ground after a called strike 3, he doesn't have to tell us DiMaggio is furious. We feel it in the description. But seeing DiMaggio's reaction adds something different, something visceral, something that might spark an emotional response no verbal description could match. And that's what happens when we return to Bobby Thomson and this moment. I can describe it, I can do it well, but it will never be exactly the same. There's a difference between imagining an experience, piecing it together from your own memories, and watching something so outside your everyday life that you might never have conceived it. Maybe you've never seen a third base coach leap onto a player's back before. You can picture it, sure, but seeing it, feeling it in real time, is another thing entirely. The funny thing about the game is that it was the first nationally televised Major League game, and yet what it was really known for was the radio call by Russ Hodges. The broadcaster who was announcing the game on television that day was Ernie Harwell, who you may remember from the end of last week's show. But because they didn't record the televised broadcast, Harwell's call is lost to history. But Hodges was not, although this was more about luck than intention. In 1929, Russ Hodges was finishing his law degree at the University of Kentucky when he got a little taste of broadcasting for the football team. According to Hodges, quote, "I got the bug bad," end quote. A few years later, he asked for a raise at his radio station, to which the manager replied, quote, "I can go down any alley, fire a shotgun, and hit 30 guys who are better than you," end quote. During the 1940s, Russ Hodges would join famous broadcaster Mel Allen to commentate for the Yankees. Russ Hodges was plain-spoken. What you heard was who the guy was, whereas Mel Allen was extremely knowledgeable and extremely emotional. According to Kurt Smith, Allen would read letters on the air from fans, and then he'd argue with them about what they wrote. Also, Allen would sit for a half hour after the game dissecting the commentary, figuring out what went well and what could have gone better, while Russ Hodges was out the door and at the bar as soon as the last out was recorded. But during the 1940s, the two men worked well together until Hodges left in 1948 to cover the Giants, first in New York and then in San Francisco, trademarking his famous catchphrase, "Bye bye baby," whenever someone hit a home run. The catchphrase was so well known, they made a popular song about it, at least to Giants fans.
When the Giants come to town, it's bye bye baby. Every time the chips are down, it's bye bye baby.
Hodges had a long and celebrated career in broadcasting. He was named Announcer of the Year by the Sporting News in 1950. And yet for the rest of his life, he was known for the call on the shot heard round the world. The call came up in popular entertainment, like the television show MASH and the movie The Godfather. Sonny Corleone is listening to the broadcast in his car when he's killed. Russ Hodges' scorecard is preserved in the Hall of Fame, and you can see the pencil slash on the paper where Hodges was making a mark, but then Thompson hit the home run, and Hodges jumped up, his pencil streaking across the card. According to biographer Kurt Smith, Russ Hodges lived off the call till his death 20 years later. And yet this iconic broadcast remembered by millions was not recorded by any stations at the time. The only reason we have Hodges' radio call preserved all these years was because a 26-year-old Giants fan named Larry Goldberg had to work that night. So he set up a reel-to-reel tape recorder next to the radio. This was one of those bulky old recorders. If you imagine a box with these giant film-like reels connected to it, that's what it looked like. And Goldberg set this up, and he asked his mom to tape the 9th inning of the game, which she did. And it was the only known recording of the game. Later, Goldberg wrote to Hodges. He said, "If you don't have a copy, you can borrow mine." And Russ Hodges did borrow his copy. He made his own copies, and he sent them out as Christmas gifts. But when we come back to this game, we start to see the FOMO, the fear of missing out of a shared national experience, which led to more and more people buying televisions. Because many people would have watched this game, and it wasn't happenstance. It was game 3 of a playoff between rivals. People were prepared, their seats staked out at a friend's house or at a bar. And this FOMO came up in the preceding years with every milestone game. Like, for instance, Don Larson pitching the first and only perfect game in World Series history on television in 1956. And here's another hallmark of baseball, this seeming paradox between boredom and drama. Think about it. You go to a game, you want to see action, hits, steals, close plays, home runs. And this is the World Series, the best of the best. And yet no one on the Brooklyn Dodgers could get a hit or even a walk off Don Larson. In the beginning, especially for Dodgers fans, it was probably discouraging, boring. First inning, no hits, no walks. Second inning, no hits, no walks. Third inning, fourth inning. Even the Yankees only managed 5 hits and 2 runs. But by the 5th inning, people would have started to notice. Wait a second. Don Larson is doing something. He's moving toward a goal that no one has ever achieved. And that's going to raise the hairs on the back of your neck with each new out as he gets closer and closer. This is tension as the wire tightens. 12 more outs. Now 9 more outs. Now 6. And you're watching on television, surrounded by friends or strangers, all connected to this unique moment in time. And yet, it's so fragile. A hit would break up the perfect game. That hit could be a line drive, it could be a dribbler down the third baseline. And a walk would also end it. Even an error by a fielder, which has nothing to do with the pitcher, would break up the pitcher's perfect game. 6 outs turns to 4, then 3, then 2. And everyone is waiting to uncoil, to shout, to throw up their hands. And now it doesn't matter if you're a Yankees fan or a Dodgers fan, or you happen to be standing nearby and you don't really like baseball. This is a celebration for humanity, for sports, for a team and an individual achieving something that has never been done since the inception of the World Series. Bars and living rooms across the country are silent as millions hold their breath. And then,
Got him! The greatest game ever pitched in baseball history by Don Larson. A no-hitter, a perfect game in a World Series. 64,517 have seen it. Millions more on television.
if you shared in this experience, you would never forget it. And if you didn't share in the experience, you'd never forget it. After hearing from 5 or 6 people talking about it, you'd be on your way to the department store. As Dennis Denninger wrote in his book, Sports on Television, quote, "If you were a baseball fan in America and didn't own a television set on October 8th, 1956, you undoubtedly felt that you had been left out when history was made. And it's very likely that those fans joined the ranks of TV owners in order not to remain in the unconnected minority." End quote. 1956 is also the same year of another key invention, the videotape for recording and playing back television programs. Another milestone that paves the way for more televisions, more television programming, and more baseball on television. Television did many things for baseball, including opening the eyes of millions of fans to segregation and inequality in America. In episode 9, I'll discuss the role of television in not only normalizing, but making a hero out of a black man to children of all colors and backgrounds across the country. We'll end tonight with a listener baseball story. Here's Steve from Baltimore.
Baseball means a lot more to me than just a sport. My dad was a Division I pitcher. His career kind of ended with 3 meniscus surgeries, so he didn't get too far from that. And then my mom was actually a part of the Orioles organization for a couple of years. She worked in the PR office and did public relations and stuff like that. But then when they moved to Camden Yards from Memorial Stadium in '93, she actually became one of the ball girls down the third baseline. So she was there for the All-Star game in '93, and then she was there for 21-31 with Cal Ripken Jr. And that's like been one of my greatest party tricks, is to like pull out a picture of her on field and Cal Ripken Jr. is just standing right there. So baseball, like it's a part of me. In college, you get your first girlfriend and everything's good for a while. We really bonded over baseball. We went to Oriole games. I worked for a minor league team for a couple months in the summer. We took a road trip up to Fenway Park. And, it's your first relationship. Sometimes it's not meant to work out. So, we broke up. I don't want to say I was in a dark place, but I definitely wasn't the happiest of people. And, I kind of associated baseball with the lost emotions that I wasn't feeling anymore. And so I was like, I don't really care about the baseball. There was probably like a 2-month period where I couldn't give a crap about, what the Orioles were doing. The Orioles were decent, but I really, really just didn't care about baseball for like 2 months, which I never thought I would ever do. So one of my roommates, he's a huge Mets fan, like fanatical Mets fan. And he was like, "Oh, they're going to be good. We're gonna make the playoffs and everything like that." I'm like, "Oh, okay. I'll believe when I see it." I got home from work one day and I was just laying down on the couch. And they were playing the Braves, and it was a game where they had to win to go to the playoffs. And I was like, "Okay, like I'll watch a little bit of it." And the Braves took it, I think, like a 3-0 lead into the sixth. I'm like, "Okay, like it's over. Like they're not going to the playoffs." And I kind of dozed off. All of a sudden, I can hear like all the runs coming across. I was like, "Okay," but I wasn't really paying attention. And then Brandon Nimmo sends a home run out to right field, and they take a lead and they eventually win it, and they're going to make the playoffs. Sean got home, my roommate, and he's a teacher, and he was driving, watching the game. I'm like, "You shouldn't be doing that," but I was like, "You know what? I'm going to watch the Mets this year." Like after not watching baseball for like 2 or 3 months, I'm like, I'm gonna watch them in the playoffs because I think they're special. And they win game 1 out in Milwaukee, and then they lose game 2. And then Pete Alonso, he hits that famous home run. And then, the radio broadcasters going nuts. And everybody on the TV calls going nuts. And, it felt like there was something special going on. And so, they beat Philly in the NLDS. Francisco Lindor hits that grand slam. I think that really got me out of a rut and kind of showed me that, like, okay, like life's going to go on. You can still love baseball while respecting the old memories. but I don't think I would have had that visceral reaction to the Mets if they weren't on TV. And so I think visualizing that and seeing it all, if I was reading it in the newspaper the next day, I don't think I would have had the emotional connection I did with that team. And I don't think I would have been able to release all those emotions if I didn't see them actually doing it. So I think that to me is really special.
Thanks, Steve, for sharing your story. In an issue of Baseball Weekly, there's a list of the top 100 things that most impacted baseball. Number 1 on the list is Jackie Robinson. Number 2 is television. In the next episode, we'll look at how television influenced the impact of Jackie Robinson on baseball, and how it brought the civil rights movement into homes and bars and businesses across the country via a game. The show is produced and edited by me, Ben Orlando. Music by Sergi Papkin and Ashot Danielian, and other artists at Pixabay and Artlist.io. Good night.